I see consumers seeking for wines that are maybe less strong, less structured, which is drinkability, something which is more vibrant, with more energy. I make wines, so I want my wines to finish up. When I taste and you finish the wine, I want the finish to be like this, and up, you want to be lifted by the wine. So I think that's what I've seen in the consumership.
Sit back and grab a glass. It's Wine Talks with Paul K.
Hey, welcome to Wine Talks with Paul K. And we are in studio today in beautiful Southern California, about to have a conversation with Aymeric de Gironde of Château Troplong Mondot. Introductions in just a moment. Hey, Wine Talks, of course, available on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, and YouTube to watch some of these sessions, incredible conversations that we're having. Just got back from a famed tasting with Aymeric de Gironde of the Château Troplong Mondot winery in Saint-Émilion. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
What did you say you were? The executive director, CEO, chief bottle washer?
Yeah, a bit of everything. Officially, I'm the CEO, president, and I'm also the winemaker, which I think is probably the most important part of my job.
You know, I took a lot of notes because you said some really fun things that are so important in our industry that we need to convey. There's a lot of crazy things going on in the marketing world of wine, as you probably already know. So we'll get to those in a minute. But what I wrote down was the absolute pure commitment and passion, life commitment for you, and it seems like your family, to be in this business and do this.
Yeah, I think it's a business which calls for that. I don't think you can just think and plan to be in the wine business. I think you need to have something that triggers a special moment, a special will to be part of it. For me, it was easy. My family's been working with Hennessy Cognac for generations and generations. My brother currently is working there. So I grew up, I like to say I grew up in a barrel. I grew up working in the vineyards. I did a lot of things. And I went to boarding school in Bordeaux, and there I discovered that those Bordeaux wines, they're incredible.
Wow.
There's so much to it. So that's what really triggered a thing.
Where were you born then?
I was actually born in Canada. But just my parents were working there. But I'm definitely from the Cognac, the town of Cognac.
You don't have that Canadian French.
No. I didn't. It was actually in the English-speaking part of Canada.
Oh yeah.
No. I think I came back to France. I was like under 1 year old, so no, didn't get time to get.
Well, we go to Montreal because I have to go once in a while. Now I get to go because I see my daughter, and I don't understand their French. I mean, I could speak with them, but.
Yeah. When they speak very fast, nor can I, so don't worry.
So you landed at Bordeaux as boarding school, and this is where you found wine. But is there a rivalry between you and your brother? He's out there, making cognac just up the road from Bordeaux, and
no, not at all. Not at all. Actually, we. I love him dearly. He makes an incredible job with the cognac, and I just do something different. And we speak a lot. We exchange a lot. We have a lot of things in common that are basic, very important elements in the way we think about wine. We think about the consumer and what product, what blend we are going to make for the consumer to have him, really spend a good time and have great emotions drinking it. So we're very, very similar in that sense. So no fight. Could have been nice, but no fight. And thank God he's way bigger than me.
It's a really good comment, great emotion, and that's what it takes for this. Troplong Mondot, that's not your original place that you started doing this, and we'll talk about your history in a second, but an important feature that you said, and you talked about a little bit today, which is the consumer. And wine has always been about the consumer. I mean, even though we have this romantic, at least I have this romantic view of what wine should be and what it is, eventually we got to sell something. Mm-hmm. And we want to sell some, not just to make the profit, but to people to share that emotion.
I totally agree. I think wine, it's not just a drink, or it's not just a beverage. It's usually wine is drunk with friends. It's a social drink. You get a little bit tipsy, but that's how you get some more.
14%. What's going to do?
Yeah, exactly. It depends how much you drink. But it usually brings like some great conversation. And that's also where sometimes you socialize very deeply with girls, when you're young.
Thing, yeah.
So, to me, it's very important, and emotion are at the core, the base of what we do. And when we make wine, we think about the people that are going to be drinking it, that are going to be sharing it with their friends.
That's the part that's so hard to define. Like, you don't feel that with beer. You don't feel that with brandy. Well, I'm sorry, I won't say that. You don't feel that with bourbon. I don't get in trouble with your brother. You don't feel it with White Claw, those things that the kids are drinking now. But you always feel it with wine. And it always starts a conversation. The conversation in general is very unthreatening. It's just a conversation. And I haven't been able to ascertain whether it's the fact the roots are down there, the tap roots are going down, and they're grabbing these minerals and they're expressing the terroir, what it is that connects people to that glass of wine.
I don't know. Wine was in the beginning of the of civilization.
Yeah.
It's been there all along through the ages, through the different phases of history. So I think that, and I think there's always a romantic element which is linked to wine. And, we all have these images of the nice place in France or in Italy. And, you think that's how you want to be in your life. And I think
that's a good point.
In every good wine drinker, I think there's a dream that one day he'll be owning a piece of vineyard, making his own wine, waking up in the morning, checking his vines. Maybe
that's the coolest part about it. I was like,
I don't know.
Happen?
I don't know, but it's so true, and to me, it's deep into the common imagery about wine, in my opinion.
I just got back from Armenia, doing some work there, and I visited 3 or 4 vineyards. And when you talk about the wine being part of the beginning of civilization, they found a 6,000-year-old winery intact with amphora and the whole trail of the wine. The guy's shoe. 6,000-year-old shoe, the winemaker's shoe. And I had the same question to that group. What is it that brings us back to that? Part of it seems to be there's something deep rooted in the humanity of wine. There's something that connects us to the earth. And when you talk about expression of terroir like you did today, and by the way, the wines are incredible, and there was this noticeably different style of wine from the first group to the second group when you took over. And I'm wondering if this, let me actually losing my train of thought because I got to talk about so much stuff. But the expression of terroir, which one of the questions I asked, is that what motivates you to bring to the table that people understand that this is a place and a time? Absolutely.
To me, it's essential.
Yeah.
Having a sense of place in a bottle of wine or in a glass of wine is, to me, it's key. And you really expressing through the vine what's happening in that soil and what does it want to share and convey to the.
Hey, have a listen to Randy Dufour of Enniskillen, the famed late harvest Riesling and Cabernet Franc wines from the Canadian Niagara Peninsula. Incredible wines. And the first time I've ever paired what some would call dessert wines with Thai food, and it was phenomenal. There was a lot of dessert wine. And as well, coming up is Stephanie Franklin, the second Stephanie Franklin I've done on the show. And she has gone back to Shanksville, Texas, to plant a vineyard for the first time in the history of that town. And Shanksville is an extraordinarily interesting town in America because it was one of the first free black communities post the Civil War. And she is tied to the founder, and she is starting a vineyard there, and she has got a lot of passion to do it.
To the customers. So that's why we've been working so hard in encouraging the roots of the vines to go deeper and deeper every year. And that's where they really suck up the inside of this earth and transmit it into the wine. My biggest joy is when I taste a wine and I can feel the minerality. I can feel the earth, and that's fantastic. That's like extremely satisfying.
maybe that's the answer to the question. You feel the earth, you feel the thing. So is there a wrestle between, we talked about this a little bit today, between pleasing the score people, which I think is an important part, and we'll talk about it in a second, but pleasing the scoring critics of the wine world, which have been around forever, and creating a brand recognition in what you're serving. And it was very revealing to me, and particularly the second group of wines. This is your fingerprint on the wines, and and it certainly spoke of minerality and terroir. But is that a wrestle for you to balance between a brand value and a brand recognition?
Not really. I really, really focus on making the wine that is the purest expression of our land. So that's really, really the number one. As it happens, I think it's very coherent with what the consumer wants today. And I think wine lovers today, they want to understand where the wine is coming from. They want to make sure that when they taste it, when they share it with a friend, they can speak to it and say, look, it describes the place, or it has the feeling of that place. And I think inevitably it usually works with the wine critics. There might have been a moment a few years back where some of the wine critics were so powerful that it's a natural human thing that to say, this guy is very powerful. He's really making the decision in terms of business. Do I try to do something closer to what he does? Yeah, exactly. Of course. Who wouldn't?
I suppose that's the case.
Who wouldn't?
But you're right. They're not as powerful as they were.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. I think it's actually probably for the better. It's very interesting because as a consumer, you can follow different wine tasters and have different point of view, different access. That actually challenges you and makes you think about that property, and you can make probably a smarter choice if you have different vision, slightly different opinion about the wine. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
There's an important part of the trade, the critic side, but one of my the things I like to point out to the listeners is that if let's say you're chasing points all the time, 95 points, and you could have I had a wine the other day from the Canary Islands. It was fabulous. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And it was a 95-point wine. But it's completely different than a 95-point Saint-Émilion.
Oh, that's... you're reaching a totally different point, which is unsolvable. Is the 95 compared to its peers within the same region for a given year?
Yeah.
Or is it an absolute 95 compared to all the other wines in the world?
There's two different things.
That's a big, which I absolutely have no idea. I don't know how to answer. Right. But that's the big question. That's
the consumer that's chasing points might just, it's 95 points, so this has got to be good. And they go, why? I don't really like it.
But I think you're right. 95 points within its environment.
Its own environment.
Now, that's a tricky one.
Because you were with Coste d'Esternel before this. How long were you there? 5 years. And before that?
I was working on the side of a gentleman called Christian Silly at Pichon Baron and Sud-Liro. And we had some mostly incredible port wine called Quinta do Noval.
Yeah, right.
So, it was an absolutely gorgeous organization. And
Christian Seeley.
Yeah, Christian Seeley is a British gentleman who handles 8th vineyard of AXA millésime.
I just had Mr. Symington on the show. He's not Quinta Noval, though. He's Graham's.
Yeah.
Is he Quinta Noval?
Graham, no, Quinta do Noval is AXA millésime, so it's Christian Seeley.
Okay, all right. Have you seen in the Bordeaux side now the change in the consumerism? Forget the volume for a second. We're going to talk about that, but just in what they're looking for, or that generations have different palates. You notice that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think it's just Bordeaux. I think it's globally. I see consumers seeking for wines that are maybe a less strong, less structured. There's a little bit more of, I don't love this word, which is drinkability, but it's actually that, and something which is more vibrant with more energy, and something that actually gonna, I make wines, so I want my wines to finish up.
Yep.
It's a bizarre thing, and when I taste and you finish the wine, I want the finish to be like this and up. And that, to me, you want to be lifted by the wine. So I think that's what I've seen in the consumership. That's my vision. I don't know if it's
I think
it's a universal one or not.
Well, maybe this is a problem with social networking and the general communication level of this immediate communication. In fact, but when I got back to the office today, I posted a picture of you and the corks on the table, which is a great still life of the corks that are sitting on the table. But I wrote that, thank you for staying the course, and thank you to Duclos for staying the course in producing wines and not veering off from the pressures of marketing, social networking, management headwinds, and producing a true product that does represent this. And it leads me to this sort of conclusion, and people think I'm nuts, but it almost sounds like, it feels like but if you follow that path, there are no bad vintages. In other words, yes, some vintages have headwinds with weather and terroir and all the rest of it, but as long as you're expressing it at its truest point, and somebody can feel that you don't really have a bad vintage.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to quote you. I love that. There's no bad vintages. I think, global warming or climate change is a problem today. But I have to say that it really favored Bordeaux over the past 20 years.
Really?
And it allowed us to make no bad vintages because conditions are pretty positive. In the 60s, 70s, you could have some actually very, very complicated vintages. And also technique got better today. But that's the point. It's what is a bad vintage? As long as you're very pure and very true to your origin, and you need to do the necessary choices. That's the key. Mm-hmm. If not your grapes are fantastic, then you got to, put some on the side.
Right. Do the work it takes.
That's life, so it's going to cost you a little more. But at least what you are going to deliver to your friends, to your customers, is going to be something pretty sharp coming from your estate with I think, a great quality. Then wines of the decade or of the century, as we like to call them in Bordeaux.
No, that was a funny thing you said.
It's true.
We have how many centuries?
Yeah, we have wine of the centuries every other year or so in Bordeaux, right, yeah. and but we get carried away because we love the wine. That's the thing. And you have one and you think, oh, that's it, and then the year after is amazing. So you're like, whoa, what I'm going to say is it. I can't say it's bad, so I'm going to say it's another wine of the century.
Yeah, of course.
But what's interesting is I think it relates to the question of the points earlier. Is I think it's less and less important to rely on points, and it's more important to rely on what sort of wine I like, what property do I like because they're doing such and such type of wine. And I relate to them, so I want to continue buying them regularly, not exclusively. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't. Nobody should drink only one type of wine. It's, there's a lot of great wines in the world. But, I think that's very important. It should be part of what triggers your choice in buying wine is, what does it speak to me? What is the story behind it?
The story behind it.
The story behind it is fantastic. Storytelling. Everybody keeps talking about, social media storytelling. What do you relate? You relate to numbers, a piece of paper? No, you relate to people, you relate to emotions, and you relate to experiences.
I hate to say this, I've been hankering for a Burgundy tonight. Now, last night I did have a Bordeaux, it was a Margaux. Forgot which one it was. But I kind of feel like Burgundy tonight. But which is what we do, right? We sort of feel like, what are we going to drink tonight? And then we'll work around that as far as what we eat. But you said something important, and it's very important today. I spent 35 years doing this, and I was a prolific internet marketer. And, I sent 33 million emails my last full year in 2022. Okay, so that's kind of
a lot of emails.
All that stuff. And it got very difficult. I mean, you trying to find the buyer, and when you said, experience, I'm convinced today that the experience at dinner time with friends is not, I got this for $5 on the internet. That's not an experience. And maybe you wouldn't brag about that.
Absolutely.
But the experiential part of wine, going back to this patch, Les Amis de Vin, which was a group of enthusiasts in the 70s and 80s that my father's store had a chapter, and you get dressed up, you come to the dinner, and Robert Mondavi would speak, and the local critic would speak, and people would go home with the sense of an experience. I know that Saint-Émilion has changed the rules sort of for the classifications to include experience.
Yeah, it's true. And it's been quite criticized to start with.
Yes.
But now I think it's being recognized as being a key element into the into how you rate and how you classify an estate.
Yeah.
And so that's for Saint-Émilion. And for us, for instance, we are very special. We have room in our vineyards.
I was going to check on the guest rooms here. I know that I saw a picture, but okay, go ahead.
But all of that is part. I mean, we can go deeper a bit later, but all of that is about experience. And what I'm seeing right now is all the visitors that come to the estate, that meet the people from the team, that meet my dog Rosie, that goes around and cheers everyone. Yeah, see, it's important, and it's part of the experience.
Yes.
It's part of the experience. Then they are going to have a great dinner in our restaurant. The staff, the table staff in the restaurant is extremely welcoming, warm, not stiff at all, even though it's a Michelin star and everybody think it's going to be like
That's a good point.
People. Not at all. And my idea behind that is when they come back home, they say, we had a moment. We had a special moment. Whether it's with your friend, with your girlfriend, your wife, your kids, whatever. You had a moment. You had a moment where you are probably a little bit out of time, where the craziness of every email, Instagram, whatever stops. You're just enjoying something surreal on top of a hill, having great wine.
It's completely true.
And you know what? You're going to remember that. You know, and out of the terrible year you had, inflation, blah, 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 you name it, elections, you know what? You have these moments, and you're going to remember for life. And you know what? Those moments were with a glass of Troplong Mondot, which is what I want.
It's not even, it's kind of interesting because we were just on Saint-Émilion. We were at Hotel Pavie.
Yeah.
We went and visited Cheval Blanc, thanks to Monsieur Svacher here. We went and saw Angelou's, and then we went to the left bank. But it's not only just your wine. Oh, Gaffelier.
Gaffelier.
Are you near there?
Yeah.
You're right there.
Yeah, right there.
When you said the hill was there, I knew it was close. You don't
where you have, Pavie slope, you see the slopes of Pavie. So above Pavie, that's where our vineyard is.
So we were looking at it.
We looked at it.
Yeah.
From down.
You don't make Chardonnay, though, like those guys do.
No. I'm thinking of a white wine, but it's probably not going to be Chardonnay.
Yeah, that's crazy when I tasted it. But, yes, we visit Troplong Mondot, and I had that experience to taste the wines. They have the Michelin star restaurant. And I want to talk about the aristocracy of that in a second. But not only that, I could then go to the store, talk to a wine merchant, and if somebody just said Saint-Émilion, maybe it's not Mondot this time, but I have a vision of the whole area, too, in Bordeaux in general, or the right bank in general. So there's a lot of conjured up images and feelings from one visit to a chateau. It doesn't have to be only the wines of the chateau.
No, I think the different level of emotions, and Saint-Émilion is pretty special because the village is it's a medieval place. I mean, you feel you're back,
incredible.
10 centuries ago. It's like it hasn't moved at all. So I think the whole region carries a sort of a spirit, and then it's up to each chateau, based on how they welcome their guests, to magnify the spirit and make you prefer one to the other, or maybe prefer one at lunch and another one at dinner.
When did you buy the bakery?
We opened it last week.
Oh, so
it's brand new. We bought it like 5 months ago.
because my wife, I called my wife. I said, "Do you remember the bakery?" Because we went down there.
Yeah.
And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I think they just sold it." I said,
"Yeah, it was. We purchased it like 6 months ago, and we opened it on October 1st. Our idea was, first of all, in a village in France, if you start losing your bakery, it's a bit of the soul of the village that disappears. So we didn't want that to happen. And two, because we have all the top food that we do in our restaurants, which is Michelin star, it sort of scares a few people away because they feel like, whoa, that's going to be too posh or too complicated for me.
Exactly.
And having the bakery, it allows us, and our pastry chef called Adrien Salaver is really one of the best in France.
Really?
And, since we opened, he put all of the it's like all of his little desserts, individual desserts.
Guess I'll have to go back now.
You have to. And the idea was, listen, if you don't go to the top restaurant, then you can still, enjoy some of those great creations and great desserts in the.
Well, there's another Michelin star, the Pavie, also has a star, no? And the reason I brought it up, and I still want to pursue it a little further, particularly the Michelin star part. My daughter is a graduate of Alain Decasse's patisserie school. They're called
good.
The patisserie at.
She's looking for an internship. Ask her to give me a call
for him, and then she came to L.A. and fixed a couple programs. Then she worked in New York and earned a star with her chef as the lead baker. And then COVID hit and everything closed.
All right,
but it's so interesting because, and I can see why the synergy for Mondot is. There's so much, the relationship between bread, particularly, and wine, and the fermentation sciences, and not only that, the passion it takes and the effort it takes to produce the best that you can produce is quite voluminous.
Yeah, it's really a true a dedication. You really have to be like. I think you have to be a bit crazy, a bit mad, because every single step is about so many precision, and you make an experiment, and then it doesn't work, and you start again, and so on and so on. And you need to have a bit of vision also what you want to do, what sort of bread you want to do, what sort of dessert you want to do. And it's quite interesting because when I arrived, the Michelin chef, it's called David Charrier. They actually came with me in Los Angeles, and we did some private dinners. We ran a pretty crazy program there. But anyway, I think some of his cuisine could be a little bit complicated at the time with a lot of ingredients. And the same way in the winery, we have shifted a little bit our style to extreme purity, precision of the fruit, hidden power, but nothing in your face. Something's very elegant, very balanced. His food has followed exactly the same path.
Really?
But I didn't have to tell him to do so.
No.
Just a natural evolution where when you're young or when you're a young cook, you want to show off a bit. So you keep showing off what you know how to do.
Yeah.
And the more you're in peace with yourself, then you start showing just the raw product, very little dressing, just like purity, expression, and you seek for the quality of the origin. So he seeks for the quality of its meat, fish, vegetable that we actually grow ourselves now. The same way I seek for the purity of the different ingredients I'm going to find in our winery, which are the different plots, different exposures, different grape variety, different soil.
There's something about that simplicity of food now that's moved out, and the dynamic of food has changed so much. But there's certainly a movement. Europe has always been ahead of the curve on this, but Americans have been way behind. And I've been very focused on this in my own pursuit of understanding that, seasonal foods, our food in America is atrocious compared to seasonal, fresh, not I say handmade because it's all handmade, but just an understanding of what's coming from the farm versus some manufactured. And since you spent time in the United States, and I say this all the time, but it's my greatest analogy, and people always wake up when I say it, and that is, don't you wonder why the tomato on the bottom row of the big truck isn't smushed. Because if it was fresh, it would be smushed, right? But so let's talk about the Michelin star. I use the Michelin guide. We were just in Paris, and I use the Michelin guide, not only the starred restaurants only, but certainly for me even, they produce a certain air of aristocracy for the listener but I use the guide exclusively when I look for restaurants because the Michelin guide has a standard. And it's amongst all of the reviewers that contribute to the Michelin guide. Whereas Yelp, Foursquare, and all the social things, there's some person I don't even know, giving it a 5-star review, but we may have completely different palates. So I think the standard of the Michelin guide is very important. But it has sort of stumbled across a little bit of criticism lately. But I think is it an important part of the pursuit of your restaurant?
Yes, it is. I think it is very important for the person from the restaurant team, both in the kitchen and in the room. As you say, there's a standard, and for them, it's a reward of a great job, well done, well achieved. It's a dedication. It's a recognition which is important for them personally, but also for their future references, their future job. So it's important to be, when you want to do your career when you mention your daughter, but if you want to do your career in the hospitality industry, having been trained, having spent some time in the Michelin star chef, teaches a lot about who you are. It's a very hard job, so it shows also dedication. It shows, involvement into a long-term project. So yeah, it is very important. Now, it is not the end of it. There are two types of Michelin star restaurants. You have the one that are, it's like coming back to our initial discussion with the points thing. Like you have some Michelin star restaurants that are definitely looking at the Michelin standards and trying to match them all to maximize the opportunity.
That's a good point.
To do that. And you have another type of Michelin star restaurant that are just pursuing a vision of a certain type of food, a certain type of supply, of origin of product, etc. And if the Michelin gives you a reward, then fine and great, and they'll be more than happy jumping up and down. But we don't do it just to follow some standards. Right. We do it because we think it's the best to offer to the consumer. And we cook for our consumer the same way we do wine for our consumers. So, and to give them emotion, to give them moments. And right now it's working because at the end of the day, we look more at the Google reviews or at the Yelps or whatever review on a daily basis. And when we hear it, thank God it happened very rarely, but it happened last year, one person was disappointed. And the whole crew in the kitchen was like,
wow,
what's going on? What did you do wrong? And the following day we pick up the phone, we call that person, say, sorry, we saw your review, something went wrong. What can we make it better? We're really sorry. What happened? Can we last time someone had that, we said, you got to come back. And we actually invited them back and said, we want to erase that wrong moment you had. So at the end of the day, the end consumer is what you do it for. And the Michelin star is great recognition and helps you also go further.
I don't think that the impact of what you just said is completely understood. The beginning of social networking and reviews of all different types, long before Google, but all the beginning reviews, one of the most important parts of that ability, which some entrepreneurs and some restaurateurs and some merchants would think, oh my gosh, this guy's reviewed me is so bad. But it really was turned around in the periodicals and the use of it as an opportunity for the vendor or the hospitality or the restaurant to vocally and publicly fix the problem.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, huge thing. The people that don't do that are missing the point of the ability to completely do that. And that's part of that. There's a very funny French movie as part of my studies. L'Huile, it's two opposing guides.
Louis de Funès. and it's
Yes.
called l'aile ou la cuisse, which is the wing of the thigh. Yeah.
Funny movie.
It's a funny movie, and it's funny you bring it up. The name of our menu in the restaurant is, you can take the L menu or the cuisse menu in a restaurant.
I hope.
And
From that?
Yes, of course. And I did it as a joke because I love this movie and I love this guy.
Okay,
and
that's so funny.
But in a Michelin environment, I was not sure if it was going to be, socially accepted by the Michelin.
That's so funny.
And they said it's okay, but I was like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a movie. It's got to be from the 70s, maybe.
Oh yeah, completely. But it's pretty. It's a
I'll have to bring that up again.
It's a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic movie.
Well, there was a website, FrenchFilm.fra, and it was free, and it had French captions. I needed French captions so I could read.
Yeah.
I can't hear it as well.
Yeah, this one is a cool one.
It's really funny. So, you showed something today, and I was fascinated by it, and I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. We're moving on quickly here. And that is, you showed a horse plow, and then this conversation came out of some of the gentlemen there about sustainability and organic and all the rest of it, natural wines, which really isn't even a real world in America. But you are using horse-drawn plows, and you suggested that because of that, the plowing itself is being done, but there's also this sort of compaction and this. Tell me about that a little bit, because I want to understand.
It's interesting because it's something I've been faced with in Saint-Émilion, but I had never had any problem with when I was at Coste d'Estournel, for instance. And it's really linked to the type of soil you have. So the soil in Troplong Mondot is extremely dominated by clay, and especially in Troplong, where we have a piece of soil that just exists in our vineyard. Clay, if you walk on it repeatedly on the same spot, it totally compacts the soil. And an over-compacted soil, nothing grows on it. You need to have aeration. You need to have some bacteria in it. You need to have some microbes in it, some little worms, etc., etc. So one of the big thinking and the big work we've done has been to work on decompacting the soil using the horses, because they never walk at the same spot, so they never compact. Wow. And it has been really, really actually working much faster than I had anticipated. And the other thing has been to decompacting the soil using some special type of cereals planting. And those cereals had a pretty deep root system, which actually allows they go very deep into the soil and they grow, they open up that soil. So, from what was an idea, which was a very logical idea, if you have a living soil, then chances are you're going to have a better product coming out of it. I mean, if you ask any person growing vegetable, it will tell you that. We did some surveys. To do a survey, you dig a hole and you see right by the roots of the vine, and you see how it works. So we did it with 10 years apart, and it worked really well. And you can see the roots now that are getting deeper and deeper into the soil. The water that flows through the soil is not stuck in it. The roots are breathing better. They're going through more layers of land, and therefore there are more exchanges. And naturally, they make you a more complex wine, which is an even better expression of where it's coming from.
And the horses don't go on strike.
They don't go on strike. But you can't just park them and take off the key.
Yeah, that's true.
They need some food. They need to be grooming. They need a lot of work.
Isn't that interesting, though, that some of these processes are going back to what the monks might have done, that you're getting away from pesticides. I think in 2000 you stopped using herbicides.
Herbicides, pesticides, no more for the last 20 years. Yeah,
that's a very interesting part. So would you call yourself organic, or do you care about the certification organic, or just sustainable, or buy the name? Where do you put yourself in the chart?
I don't care about the any certification. I don't like extreme, and I think extreme leads to sometimes non-rational decisions. Yeah. And I think you need to do what's best for your land, for the type of wine you want to do. Right. So we're probably one of the most advanced sustainable property in Bordeaux. We have our totally independent in our heating system. We recycle the wood from our pruning of the vineyards every year. We have no waste because we feed them to chicken and pigs. I mean, we have an incredible, balanced and globally integrated system.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go by with a label. I don't believe in labels. I believe in vision, and I believe in what you want to do for the future.
You know, it's interesting because you can taste when wines are manipulated. You can taste it. I mean, you can feel it. And the gentleman that was asking questions today, was talking about natural wines, which in America, there's no such thing. There's no definition for that. But certainly organic. And I certainly agree with you on whether the nomenclature on the back label, the green label, is important or not. You're doing it out of pure desire to produce the best product you can, and that calls for the kind of farming and that kind of process, period.
Exactly.
If you want to market. I had a customer in my club that was part of my organic club, and she sent a wine back because she didn't see the green sticker, even though the winery was just like you and everything they'd done was organic, but just they didn't bother going through the certification.
Step one is the quality of the wine.
Yeah, that's what
and then
not to. So then you said something today, which was, the gentleman said it tastes like shit. Okay, right? Some of these, which is kind of interesting because up until when? The 40s, maybe? Bordeaux, Burgundy, anywhere in the world was organic. You didn't know anything else.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we add all this stuff and we destroy our crops. And America is like a huge villain of this. And then now we're patting ourselves on the back for not doing it. I don't get it.
I think it's interesting what you say. You see a lot of techniques and approaches that have been maybe taken to what we used to do 60 years ago. But we don't take them we don't come back at just like the way they were 60 years ago.
Right.
We actually bring what we learned from what was done 60 years ago and add it to a more modern twist. And I think the one that I want to be purely natural wine, and it's something you have in France where they say, we don't do nothing. We don't. And to me, that's terrible because that's refusing evolution, and it's refusing, advance in technology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you want to do? This is important. We learned that SO2 protects your wines from having some bad smell. Well, you know what? Use SO2. And if you don't want to do it, then you should write on your label, this might smell pretty funny.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's natural. So, are you selling natural wine or are you selling wine that, anyway. So it's a complicated debate, I think.
SO2 is natural, much of it.
Yeah. It's a very, I think the one very good thing this whole movement has done is that he has forced everyone to re-challenge the way we were looking at, pesticides and any element from outside. It forced us to revisit that. And during the 70s and the 80s, we've been very much encouraged by big corporation to treat 1 hectare, you need 10 kilos of whatever, sulfur or copper. Mm-hmm. But the reality is you actually need 1 kilo. But they were making so much money on our back that, we were encouraged to do so. And more, thanks to the, people that were fighting for organic farming, etc., we start to challenge ourselves. Mm-hmm. Okay, do I need 10 kilos? No. Actually, you know what? With 1 is good. So I think all this movement has been absolutely terrific and very positive for the winemaking business in general. And then some want to go through the organic or biodynamic, and they think it's probably best for the wine they want to do, and it's fine. And I totally respect that. And I think everyone needs to trust or believe what they want to do and then follow their path.
That's an interesting point about big corporations, and it's a huge movement in America for food. And I'm totally on board now because of many parts of my own personal life when it comes to nutrition. But we, like we said earlier, we've butchered our wheat farms, and we've butchered our pig farms, and the cows, what they eat, all that stuff, because you are what you eat as a vineyard is. And part of the movement is, man, there's a lot going on underneath that soil that we're killing because we're putting this stuff on there. And here you guys are using a horse to plow the vineyard to make sure that doesn't happen, which is really a fascinating part of this. But there's something I respect very much about the French, and that is their protection of certain goods, butter, cheese, wine, appellated. And there's always been this rural pride in making sure that those pieces are protected. And I mean, butter is so important, and it's so different. But on the other side, when I speak to French winemakers, they look at America as the new world, and you can do whatever you want.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it could be seen as extremely frustrating. When I speak with my friends from Napa and say, oh, yeah, I wanted to do that, so I did it, and I want to change variety, and I changed it. And we're like, no, I can't. I need to ask, and I need maybe 20 years before it changes in France. But you have a good side of it, which is also you protect yourself from, crazy people with crazy ideas. Yes. And usually the fact that there's a rule to produce the cheese, the wine, or the butter, it's because it has been proven as being working and at producing high quality products. Yeah. So it's always an in between
and regional products that have.
No, absolutely. But you have to work with it. I mean, it's part of the game in France, and you can either spend your life, bitching and moaning about it, or you can say, you know what, I won't be able to change that, and let me work in whatever is the field I'm allowed to work in, and what we've done with Troplong and changing the style of the wine to make them pure and a more genuine expression of their origins. It's something you can do within the rules. So I think, there's room to move around. And before changing all the big organization, I think anyone can work on how they do make the wine and what style they want to show to the consumer.
I think it was obvious today, based on your arrival, that the wines are different and the philosophy was different. Same grapes, same vineyards, but an expression of, with a different direction of where the wine was going. And it was brought up in the conversation about almost old world versus new world. In other words, you're sort of creating this new world style of wine. But I didn't completely sense that. I still sense this complexity and this expression of where it was from, which you might say.
Yeah, no, that's the key. It's actually not new world, old world. I think it's more in Bordeaux. The old world of Bordeaux was to probably look at the process where sometimes we felt it's a process which is the same for everyone, and we see what comes out. And when I say new world, is you need to challenge yourself, and you need to ask yourself that within the boundaries of your appellations, what can you do to have an expression which is, pure? It's actually the opposite of new world, because it's the purest expression of the land. Mm-hmm. And
good point.
And that's exactly what we want to do. But it's it's quite a hard journey to take those decisions, as I said this morning, because it's wine, so you have to wait 5-6 years to see if you're right.
Yeah, that's the key.
And if you're not right, there's no coming back.
We're actually out of time, but next time we get together, we're going to talk about that, because the marketing of wine, the movement to the consumer, addressing the consumer these days is quite complicated. And there is sort of this idea right now on the street that Bordeaux has some woes about itself, about it's not like the 70s, but that things are slower. They're slower around the whole world, by the way.
Yeah, they're slower around the world everywhere. Actually, the U.S. is an extremely still dynamic market.
Good.
I'm a very positive, optimistic person.
Yeah.
And my point of view is that in the U.S., we still have a lot of people to to convert into drinking wine. And the one that are, crying, saying, oh, business is down, whatever, like, put your sleeves up, move your back and go and talk to someone, open some bottles, share the wines, and trust me, you'll sell some wine.
Like you did today.
Exactly, like I did today.
And I appreciate the time today. I'm so glad I had a chance to swing by here on the way out, and safe travels on your way out. We're in Paris in March, and I had a group of 12 in June in Bordeaux, and I will never do that again. However, we had a good time and we had a lot of fun. But moving 12 people around, and finding rooms in Hotel Pavie, et cetera, was a challenge. But I think my wife and I are going to jump on a train and head back down and do some visiting. So we'd hope to see you if we can do that. But it's such a pleasure to hear your comments today and your outlook, because it's so important that we share these visions.
Thank you, and thanks for inviting me. I'm known in the Bordeaux region to speak quite freely, which sometimes it annoys a few. But it's okay, I think. Again, wine's about pleasure. It's about... and there's one comment, something which is very important and very, very strongly engraved in me is we as wine people should stop using bizarre words nobody understands. Make us look clever, or we think it make us look clever, or make us look posh. But what we're doing with that is we're scaring people out of the wine world, and that's terrible. Do not push people away. It's a great product, it's great wine. You like it, you don't like it, that's fine. That's the number one. Then you say it's right, it's blue, it's green, fine. I don't care. But just
isn't that today?
Let's not scare people away from wine.
I think I agree with you 100%. I think that it contributes and exonerates the aristocracy of wine, because wine, it is a very complicated subject, and it can be very entertaining and very academic if you want it to be, but that's not what it needs to be all the time. And I think that we propagate our own aristocracy by doing that, and I never do that because it's about the story.
Absolutely.
And this is a great story.
I agree. It's about the story.
Cheers.
Thank you for taking the time of having me.
My pleasure.
Cheers.